I've been a huge fan of Minecraft for several years now, and last year I became a huge fan of this game called Helldivers 2. And during my time playing it, there was a battle called Malevelon Creek. One of the most iconic battles in the game. It's where we liberated a planet called Malevelon Creek, and that planet had palm trees that were blue and gray grass and, most importantly, tons and tons of robots. I enjoyed the battle so much that I decided to build all of it in Minecraft. Before getting into the actual building, it's important to note that the purpose of this video and what I'm trying to do is recreate Helldivers as accurately as I possibly can, where each individual block placement matters, and I'm trying to recreate the scene from Malevelon Creek and make it almost identical to what you see in Helldivers 2. The first thing that I wanted to make sure that we did is basically make it possible for all of this to be built in vanilla Minecraft. We're not using texture packs, and we're not using mods that add blocks or vertical slabs to the game. Although something like vertical slabs would make a lot of these builds a million times easier. In this case, we are translating the game with the only selections of block we have are from Minecraft itself. But we wanted to make sure that we could take photos of our Minecraft project and basically make it look identical to the game. And so another problem arose, and that problem was, well, how do we get it to look this way? Minecraft doesn't have their own inbuilt shaders, and Minecraft has this very distinct look about it that just kind of gives it away. And I used to use Silder shaders, and this is basically what we're looking for is shaders. And Silder shaders were just not accurate to Helldivers enough. And so I went online and I Googled shaders for Minecraft 1.21.4. And lo and behold, we find a shader pack called Soulless Shaders. Now these shaders are really great because they have something really important for this visual look. They make it so that ores, you have the option to make them glow, but it's toggleable. You can turn it on or off. And so because of this, redstone glows. And because redstone glows, this allows us to use a red emissive light that actually glows pretty brightly for the automatons. And with these shaders, it completely revolutionized the project because now we could actually see in real time what this was going to look like. And one final thing, I'm going to be releasing the world download for this project for free as soon as I hit 1,000 subscribers. That being said, it's time to actually get into the building. After opening my asset world, the first thing that I wanted to make sure that we get right is the trees. Now, I pasted in some of these trees that I built. They're not very good, in my opinion, for Malevelon Creek right now, but they are the right shape. That this is kind of the palm tree design that you see in Malevelon Creek, and they're very small. So the first thing I wanted to get right with the automatons is making sure that the automaton symbol gets displayed properly. Now I've used a banner here that uses this specific type of star shape that looks almost identical to what it does in the game. And I put it on this big banner to display an automaton bases. Now it's a little bit bigger than it is in the game, but it should be around the proper size for it to work. I'm supersizing most things in Minecraft just so that I can include a little bit more detail, because building with blocks, it's a little bit challenging to translate Helldivers, where they use models, to blocks in Minecraft, where we're a lot more restricted. The first structure that I wanted to work on was the Automaton Fabricator. Now, this specific structure is extremely iconic in the game. You can recognize it at a glance, and that's basically the whole point. You're supposed to be able to see it from a distance to know if you should shoot at it or throw a grenade into the vents. This is a very, very important structure because this is how the robots spawn. Now, my brother tried to make an automaton next to us, specifically a Devastator of some kind, but we decided to not go with his design. Now, looking at the references for this Fabricator, I do think that this is as accurate as I can get. It's obviously a square shape, so it's one of the easier structures to build in Minecraft. But with the shaders that I have installed, it looks almost identical to the game at a glance. And that is exactly what I'm intending for the majority of this project. So for the first automaton, I wanted to build the Hulk. Now, this isn't a Hulk from Marvel or the Avengers. This is a massive robot that looks like its own mech. It's one of the more blocky shaped automatons in the game, and so I was thinking that this might be a good place to start. Now, I did a lot of trial and error here with this automaton specifically. It was not as challenging as I thought, but as you can see, I did try a ton of different variants here. And eventually I settled with this design, which I think looks pretty accurate. Now, moving on to the rest of the automatons, I wanted to start with the Striders because they seemed a lot more simple, but I was very unsatisfied with their design. And the rest of the automatons, I kind of also wasn't really satisfied with how they turned out either. It started with armor stands and kind of this scarecrow design for the Devastators that just never really clicked with me. I couldn't quite put my finger on it what was wrong with them at first, because they looked fine, but I just didn't understand what was wrong with them. Now, moving on to some more structures, here I'm building a tank tower. Now, this is just a massive tower with a tank turret on top of it. It's a square building, so it was pretty easy to build. But obviously, because I built a tank tower, I wanted to build tanks next. And these, I ended up struggling with way more than I thought I would. They have a very simple shape in Helldivers 2, and so it kind of felt like it was going to be easy. And they really weren't as easy as I thought that they were supposed to be. But I still managed to get out a solid design very, very quickly. Moving back to the automatons, I kind of figured out what was wrong with the Devastators. They didn't really have proper legs, and so I decided to fix their legs just a little bit, and I hadn't made a Berserker, so I decided to make him right behind the lineup here. Now, his design is not something I was satisfied with at this time, and I tried a lot of different experiments here. But now is where I get into more of the details when it comes to the Striders. I try out a lot of different things here and eventually get satisfied on this design. Moving on to Pelican 1, this specific vehicle was probably one of the vehicles and assets in this video that I struggled with the most. It has two phases where it lands and it's in the middle of the air. On the ship, in the destroyer right behind us, right there in the background, that is where I'm going to have it docked because it sits there in the bay. It has all these little details over it and this very specific round shape that is really hard to mimic with cubes. And so I tried my best and I think I got a very satisfying result with Pelican 1 here. Now, I was still unsatisfied with the tanks, so I decided to revisit them and redo their treads, because that is what I was having trouble with, and I like this way more. I used the grindstone and dark oak wood to make a very convincing looking tread in my opinion. Now, I revisited the Striders again, and just made some minor adjustments to tweak the way they look so that they look just a little bit cleaner in my opinion. And then I still wasn't satisfied with the Berserker, so I redesigned him one more time just to get him in the right spot and more comparable to the rest of the Devastators here. Now, these Devastators were kind of based off of the TNT Yeeter design that people made with the grindstone before. And this is kind of them in their upgraded form, and that is heavily what I was inspired by in this video. Now, I did not like this first attempt for the Factory Strider legs. These legs were not as accurate, and they were somewhat ugly in my opinion. So I just decided to redesign them completely. And so this is the new design leg right here. Compared to the first leg, this is a lot more bold and a lot more thick, with a lot more extruding parts. And I was satisfied enough with that leg that I decided to create the rest of the Factory Strider here. Now, building this was somewhat of a challenge, and I had to go back to my references over and over for this, just to make sure I could get every single detail right. Now, it wasn't as challenging as I thought it would be, because a Factory Strider is mostly square, and so it was a lot easier to work with here in Minecraft. The head was pretty complicated, but we still managed to get it done. And I think that the result was very satisfying, and it looks extremely accurate to a Factory Strider in Helldivers 2. Getting into the Dropships. Now, the Dropships have square engines and a square cockpit and kind of a beam that runs all the way through the middle. So this was not as challenging as I thought it was going to be, because of its square shape, made it so much easier for it to be translated into Minecraft. This was by far one of the easiest things to build from the automaton front. For the Detector Tower, the main thing about the Detector Tower is that it is way bigger than I thought it was. It wasn't necessarily hard, but it was way challenging to get the scale right because I didn't really have a lot of good photos. That being said, it's time to go back to the trees. Now, one of the problems with these trees is that they were the wrong color. They weren't blue like they are on Malevelon Creek. So, Robot Pineapple and I experimented with a different type of tree leaf and came to this satisfying conclusion of using glass and blue terracotta, where I adjusted all the bushes and everything just so that we could get the color right. Building the Stratagem jammer was pretty easy. It wasn't as challenging as I thought because it was mostly square aside from the big antenna. Now, the Gunship Fabricator. This was probably my most anticipated build of the entire video. I really wanted to recreate this. Now, this is mostly a square building, so I assumed that it was going to be pretty easy. And for the most part, it was. And using Axiom definitely helped make this go faster, but this had so much details that it was kind of hard to get it right the first time. And so I had to try multiple different ways and adjust things over and over just to get it right. Now, this is basically an hour-long time lapse that you're looking at here. I spent a lot of time on this Fabricator just to get it to look proper. Now, I wanted to make sure that Gunships could fit inside this and that they would look the proper size in comparison to the Dropships and other enemies in the game. And so I came up with this design that looks pretty much as accurate as you can get in Helldivers 2 and that could possibly fit a gunship. Now, for the Gunships, these were very complicated. Although they were really small to deal with, they were a lot harder than the Dropships because I was trying to scale them down to fit inside of the Fabricators. Now, this isn't my final design for the Gunship, but it is a very good idea of what this could look like. That almost looks like it could fit inside of the Fabricator. Now, I adjusted again here because it's missing some details, and I just wanted to make sure that it looked as accurate as it can. I pasted them around to put them next to the Dropship to see its scale, and it is about the right size. They are pretty small in the game, but they are very dangerous. Here, I test to see if it can fit inside of the door. So it is about the right size, and I really like this specific design. It's a little bit darker than my first design, which had some andesite and stone, but this design definitely feels correct. The last part to make this project whole is the Super Star Destroyer. Now, I did help build this, but I was not responsible for the overall design. That goes to my brother, Robot Pineapple. On his channel, he's gonna go over how he built this specifically. So if you guys want to support him, be sure to check him out and go look at how he accomplished this specific build. If you guys want to see a more in-depth description of each of these assets that I've made, be sure to check out my dedicated Minecraft channel, where I make tutorials on how I build most of the stuff that I do in Minecraft. I just want you guys to know that this specific channel is mostly dedicated to Helldivers content, which is why I'm putting my videos of building Helldivers in Minecraft on this channel too. The rest of the content that you're going to see is going to be on my actual Minecraft channel. Anyway, with that being said, it is time to start the final part of the project, Malevelon Creek itself. Now, in order to get this right, we first had to do the terrain. Now, I'm not super great at terrain, so Robot Pineapple helped me a lot here. And you'll probably see more of how we actually got to achieve this shape on his channel. We started with gravel, and we just elevated everything to look as closely as possible to the terrain that we could. And we had this gray and purple ground made of mycelium and some blue terracotta, and just kind of pasted it everywhere. Now over here, I kind of made a mistake, and some of the gravel was going through the world, and so I had to repair this specific spot. Now I elevated this specific spot a little bit to kind of repair it, and then I started working on the beaches. Now for the beaches, I used a specific brush that kind of took andesite and gravel and just kind of made the beach more gray and made it have somewhat of a gradient that gradually transitioned into the actual terrain on the planet here. This part of the project was pretty easy. It wasn't terribly difficult, but it was very fun to do. And that's pretty much about as far as I helped with the terrain. Everything else was done by Robot Pineapple. Now getting into the next part, this is where we finally start pasting in some of the assets. Now here we're building a heavy base for the automatons. There's this specific square-shaped one that I think a lot of you will recognize here. We tried to mimic every single thing about it from the game. Now we plopped down a bunch of trees and copy and paste the Dropships, Factory Strider, and even some Hulks. Now we started to expand the map even further with more trees. We basically pasted these all over the map. And most of this was done by Robot Pineapple and not me. Right here, we wanted to make another outpost next to this one. This time, a light outpost filled with minimal enemies. Now, I wasn't responsible for making the rocks. That was still Robot Pineapple. Now, our thought process was to put all of this in the center of the map so that players can see what we've been working on almost immediately, where they can see everything that we've done, and even including some very recognizable POIs. Now here I paste the rest of the assets in. Here I paste a Stratagem jammer, and in the background you can see that I've already pasted a Detector tower that we're going to be building later. Over here I decided that this would be a good spot for our Gunship fabricators. We have loads of flat space over here, and I felt like this would be the most easy location to build these specific buildings. Now, these structures aren't all the way done. They still require a lot of terraforming and a lot of decoration around them. Here, I'm going to be moving the Detector tower into a more proper space, but I'm actually going to be working on the Stratagem jammer first. Now, here with the Stratagem jammer, I actually struggled a lot getting the terraforming done right for this specific side objective. Now, this is where I spent most of my time on with this project. was this very specific build. It was super frustrating to get it to work right, and I'm not very good at terraforming, and Robot Pineapple was just doing a phenomenal job everywhere else. You can see it in the background, all of these rocks and stuff and trees just pasted everywhere, and I only completed one thing. Then, because of that, we decided to work together on another automaton outpost right here. Now, this outpost was very fun to build, especially since I got to paste in the assets mostly, and Robot Pineapple got to help me terraform so that this looked right. With that out of the way, it's time to move on to the next part of the project. Now, for this part of the project, it's time to finally focus on the gunships. Now, here, I paste 3 different gunships coming from that gunship fabricator over to the right. Now, my plan is to paste these everywhere in the map where they realistically would be, so nearby gunship fabricators, and even making some patrols near the edges of the map. Over here, because there is a lot of fabricators, I decided to make them a little bit more active and start encroaching in the territory in the middle of the map. Now, over to the right-hand side, you can see I paste a gunship patrol, and it just makes the map feel that much more alive to have these things up in the air. And it just makes the atmosphere so much cooler and so much more dangerous to fully represent Malevelon Creek. Now, for this part, this is the moment that I've been waiting for. This is one of my favorite POIs for the bots. It's the Detector Tower. Now, I didn't do the terraforming for this one this time, because I'm just not that great at it. So Robot Pineapple helped me terraform and then let me do the rest of the project. So here, I got to basically do everything from what I saw in the pictures and basically recreate this to the best of my ability. Now, here I paste some of the walls where you have the turrets, and basically was just trying to make this look as fortified as it possibly could. So building this wall was a little challenging, especially to work around the terrain, but it ended up looking really, really good, and I loved it. Now, I turned it to night just so I could see how it was going to turn out and what the screenshots were going to look like. And this just started to look real. This started to look almost identical to what it looked like in the game, and it was really exciting to see this project come together. I pasted in the lamps as a final part of the project, and then we moved on to the final, most important part of this build, extraction. Now, I pasted in a factory strider here to add some intensity. At extraction, you kind of get swarmed with bots, and so I decided to put the most dangerous bots that I could think of to absolutely surround our Helldivers as much as possible. So I also pasted in some dropships coming in. Thanks to the detector tower, there's probably going to be a lot of bots here for this extraction. Now, Robot Pineapple pasted some of the assets that he made, like the Super Earth buildings, and I pasted even more gunships. Now, this is where the entire project starts to come together. This is the finishing point of a mission. The single most important part is extraction. It's how you gather samples, it's how you complete the mission and get out with your lives. So the bots are going to be trying harder, and this is exactly where we wanted everything to escalate to. So we pasted everything that we could think of that could make this even more intense. And with all of that out of the way, the project is finished. Thank you guys for watching this video. You guys and your support has been phenomenal with this project. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers right now, and we're only around 100 subscribers away, so that's not very far to go. Once I hit 1,000 subscribers, the world download will be released for free in the description of this video, and all of the other videos that I've made on this specific build. So if you're excited for the project and you want to support my channel, be sure to subscribe. It helps a ton and it means a lot.